All right, cool. We're live.
We are live. We're live on Instagram and YouTube.
Yep, we're good on YouTube down here.
And we are going to talk about the best way to get your B12. There's a lot of theories out there. You think you can get your B12, but we're going to set it straight on how you guys can actually get your B12.
Yeah, and this is like the best way to get your B12.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. But first, we wanted to mention, so we said this in our Instagram stories, but this coming Saturday, December 5th, we are going to do, we're going to start the 369 liver cleanse. So if anyone wants to join us, you're welcome to join in. It's free. We're not charging anything. It's just doing it together so we can help encourage each other. And we will post about it on our stories, kind of talk you guys through it while we're doing it, just as like support. So if you've ever done it before, this might be a good time to do it again. If you've never done it, it might be a great time to give it a try. And yeah,
and it's a pretty easy cleanse. You know, it's not like a 28-day cleanse or something long like that.
Right, it's 9 days.
9 days.
Yeah, and with the Cleanse to Heal book, there's 3 different versions. So there's a simplified, and then there is the original, and then there's the advanced version. So 3 different versions that you could try out. We're going to be doing the advanced version for the first time. So we're really excited to do that, but you could do any version that you'd like to do.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Right? We're looking forward to it. This will be the first cleanse we've done since we've been back on grid.
Yes.
We did one, I think, right around the end of last year, and we videotaped that and we put it up on YouTube and stuff. That was probably in like February.
Yeah, so that was the beginning of this year, actually. Yeah.
So it's been a while for us. So, you know, if you want to join in, come on in.
Yeah.
Join in with us. It'll be fun.
On Instagram, we have a story highlight of the cleanse that we did, I think like 2 different times are on there. So you can always check it out to kind of get a scoop on what it's all about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, cool. So I think we'll jump into it now.
Get started.
Sound good?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. So this is from, you know, we're going to be discussing stuff from Anthony William, the Medical Medium's podcast. He did a podcast, and it was all about B12 and the importance of it. And so we're going to be talking a lot about stuff from that podcast, and then we of course added stuff we found in the book to this, so we can help encourage people to get more B12 in their body and explain where the best sources of B12 come from.
Yep.
So, we always hear Anthony talk about the importance of vitamin C, right? And how without vitamin C, we could die, right? B12 is up there alongside vitamin C in importance.
Yeah. And we get vitamin C from a lot of different foods. With vitamin C, it gets assimilated and absorbed into the body. However, with B12, we have to create it. Our bodies have to create it. So, it takes the food from the B12 source, deconstructs it, and then creates the B12 out of it. So there's a little bit more work that goes into getting B12 than there is with other vitamins and nutrients. And B12 is super critical for our central nervous system, our liver, and other organs in the body. And unfortunately, a lot of people are deficient in it. But let's give them some examples.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So like a cow grazing in the field, for example, that cow, it's eating the grass, and on that grass there's living microorganisms on it. These living microorganisms end up in the cow, right? And those microorganisms feed off of the enzymes and the nutrients on that raw grass. Those microorganisms then excrete So like poop. And they do that inside of your body.
Yep.
And when they poop, that is the form of B12 that we're talking about.
And you want that.
It's a good B12, and it's not the complete B12, but it's like the foundation. It's like the starting point, right?
Yeah.
And then it eventually has to get converted. So after the excretion happens, then the liver grabs hold of it. So it makes its way from this thing called the ileum, and it's at the end of your small intestines. And that's where this microorganism essentially lives. And it excretes, and when it excretes, that excretion goes to the liver, gets converted. Once it gets converted, it ends up in your bloodstream. From your bloodstream, it then goes to, your organs. It ends up in all of your cells, ends
Basically
up
gets
in your
dispersed.
brain. Anywhere that the blood flows, that's where the B12, ends up. And it's this microorganism is not like, the cow that's eating the grass. That microorganism that the cow is then consuming is unique to the cow. You know how like we all, have a unique fingerprint. That fingerprint is actually unique to ourselves. That's like what that microorganism is to the cow. So you consume the microorganism. That microorganism is now given to the cow. It's meant for the cow. And then it gets converted in the liver. And then that cow then uses it in the bloodstream and
Gets
in the
it
cells
in
and the
B12.
brain and, all the organs. And so because it's been converted in the liver by that cow, it's now not a usable form of B12
for like a human, right?
for a human, right? So
It's just specifically for the cow or an animal.
yeah, it's meant for that cow because the cow's used it. So because it's been used by the cow, it can't be used by anybody else. It's meant for the cow.
And that applies with all animals, right?
Totally. So that applies with like, let's say like a fox got into a chicken coop, ate a chicken, right? That fox is not going to get the B12 from the chicken because the chicken has already used the B12.
Yep.
It's already been converted through the chicken's liver into the bloodstream and dispersed to wherever the chicken needed it, right? The fox then goes and eats some berries, maybe eats some grass or some leaves or some roots, and all of a sudden that fox now has those living microorganisms in it and gains back the B12 that it did not get from the chicken.
Right. So it's not getting it from the meat. It's coming from the living microorganisms that's on the grass, the berries, like the fruits and the veggies, basically, right?
Yep. Yep. And then like, like a bear, like if a bear ate a salmon, right? That bear is not going to get the B12 from the salmon. The bear is going to get the B12 from the berries and the honey that it eats.
Yep. So I'm sure you guys can see where we're going with this is that, you hear that you can get B12 from eating meat, but that's not the case. There's no, if you eat meat, you eat that chicken, you eat that cow, you eat that salmon, but the B12 that they have in their body, you're not going to get the B12 benefit. So when consumed, that meat then goes into your body, it goes down in your stomach, it starts to break down from the hydrochloric acid, and then the bile in your small intestinal tract then starts to break down the fats, and then it goes to your liver, and your liver processes it, and what it does, it takes in and discards any good or bad nutrients, and so it'll take in the good nutrients, and then it will discard the bad ones. And the B12 that's in, say, like some meat is seen as a foreign object. It can't process it again as B12 again because it was already processed. It can only be processed once. So then it just discards it. It comes out when you urinate, and it's not even used by your body.
Yeah.
So
that's like super important, because you go to the doctor's office and the doctor runs a test, and then that test tells you, well, you're deficient on B12, right? So you instantly start to freak out and think, well, I need B12. Where can I get B12, doctor? And the doctor says, well, you got to eat meat,
right, or probiotics.
Or probiotics, or nutritional yeast, or chlorella. It's like they want you to rely on the meat products to get the B12, but what we just explained to you is you don't get any B12 from meat products. The body sees it as a foreign invader and
can't process
it, so it says, get out of my body, and it urinates it out.
Yeah. So the microorganisms that you want, they don't come from probiotics or probiotic products. So like people think, like kefir, fermented foods, yogurt, kombucha, sauerkraut, and probiotic pills. The probiotics that are on those items can't survive your digestive system. So basically, once you consume it, the probiotics on those items die before it gets to the very end of your digestive system, which is your ileum, and the ileum is where the B12 is produced. Microorganisms that you get from, like the animals when we were talking earlier, they get it from the blade of grass or the berries. Those types of microorganisms make it all the way down to your ileum. And then that's what's used to produce the B12 in your body and then get dispersed throughout your body.
And those microorganisms, they set up house in your ileum, right? So it's important to feed those microorganisms these things we're talking about, veggies and fruit and herbs and wild foods, because those microorganisms, we want as many microorganisms as we can get in your ileum, and we want to feed them as many good things as we can, because they'll continue to produce the B12 that then gets converted by the liver and then gets pushed into the bloodstream, and then your body will end up benefiting at the end of the day from all that B12.
B12 is critical for your body. Like we said earlier, everyone is really deficient in it. And it's really critical for the functioning of your whole entire body. So it's important to know the right B12 to get in your system.
And then these like living microorganisms, they live on like the skin of fruit or the leaves of vegetables, and they're so tiny. I mean, they're like microscopic. They're super tiny. They're not even visible by the eye. And this is why, insects eat your crops, right? Like we had killer aphids up at the property.
Oh gosh, yeah.
This is what the aphids feed off of. They feed off of these living microorganisms.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony says that the absolute best form of B12 that you can get in your body comes from insects, because that's what these insects live off of.
They're just constantly eating off of the microorganisms, so
they have
high sources,
a tremendous amount of B12 in them. So next time you're picking that slug off your plant, think about consuming it, because it could give you some wonderful B12, right?
Yeah, when we were up north, and I'd make us salads every day for lunch, and bugs, and Ben would find them in his salad
as I'm taking a bite.
And he's like, I think you forgot something. And I was like, well, at least you'll get your B12 in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't
consume
insects, but I'm sure we have, and hey, more B12 the better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the microorganisms, what's really cool about that is this is how your plants work for you. So you guys, if you listen to Anthony, you might have heard him say that your plants they change their like genetic makeup to help heal you based on what your illnesses are or what certain symptoms you have. It will adapt to help heal you. And so that is because when you are working in your garden, touching your plants, you are coming into contact with those microorganisms. And those microorganisms, they get to know you and start to understand your struggles and start to build food and medicine for you, specifically for you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've always found that really fascinating.
Yeah, and you can even talk to your plants and stuff, and play music. They seem to enjoy all that stuff.
Yeah, you guys might have seen it on our story. I showed someone took a 24-hour, what is it called when you like take a video for 24 hours?
Mm-hmm.
I forget what that's called, but they took like a video of 24-hour time lapse of their house plants, and it showed the house plants like moved, and because they like to move, and I thought that was really cool. But anyways, off topic.
So the microorganisms we're talking about, and you might hear Anthony also talk about them and call them elevated biotics, right? And the reason that they're called elevated biotics is because they work above the ground. They're elevated. And they work for us above and beyond anything on this planet.
Yeah, I mean, because they're
made for us.
They're made to help heal us, which is just like so amazing.
Yeah. So they live on these plants, right? And then you water your plants, and these microorganisms go crazy because they love the minerals in water, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And some you might lose some, right? So some of those microorganisms might fall off, but then they jump on a new blade of grass and they meet some new friends, and then all of a sudden they are back at it doing their thing and working for whoever's going to consume that blade of grass.
Does anyone else sorry to interrupt you, but we just get a kick out of Anthony's voices on his podcast, and I think during that section he's like, like the water's coming and the plant or the microorganisms are going crazy. We just find it really funny. I don't know if anyone else does.
Yeah, well, I do.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay. But yeah, what it reminded me of, like how tiny these microorganisms are. It's like, when I was younger, I used to watch that movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And you're like,
I feel like that used to be on TV all the time.
And you remember how small they shrunk those kids. Well, these microorganisms are like 20 times smaller.
Like you can't even
see them.
You can't even see them. It's like a whole new world
for them. Yeah, totally.
If you were to like shrink down to their size, it would be like.
But so like the reason we're explaining this stuff to you is because these microorganisms are super important, and it's another reason why everybody should be growing their own food, right? Because the more you wash your food, the less of these microorganisms remain on your food, and then the less you get in your body. So
like the food at the grocery store that's been like double, triple washed, you're not getting those microorganisms. But like at the farmer's market, you're getting them, even if they do like a light rinse. But if you grow them in your own garden and you don't have to rinse them because maybe they're not dirty, you're going to get some amazing microorganisms.
Totally.
And really good B12 benefits in your body. But yeah, so the thing that you hear is like, so science and research, they're focusing on dead microorganisms. So things that are like fermented, those are dead microorganisms. Things like rotting animal flesh, rotting foods, fermented foods. The bacteria that we need is living bacteria. We don't want the decaying bacteria. So it's best to really steer clear of those fermented foods and focus on the life-giving microorganisms. Now, if you really enjoy fermented foods, that's fine. If it's like fermented sauerkraut, things like that, fermented plants, that's not going to really harm you, but it's not, just understand it's not going to benefit you.
Yeah, and if most fermented foods contain liver or vinegar in them.
Yeah, so you want to avoid.
You want to avoid vinegar, because
if
you listen to our last live we did on apple cider vinegar, we talked about vinegar and how vinegar pickles your liver, but also pickles all of the toxins in your bodies, in your cells, which then give viruses and bacteria and pathogens a constant food source. So you want to avoid vinegar at all costs. And fermented foods, they don't help you at all. They're non-beneficial. So, you really don't even want to consume fermented foods because they're not going to do anything for you. Not like these life-giving microorganisms that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's really best to focus on living foods. You don't want to fill up your stomach on things that aren't going to help you, especially if you're dealing with a chronic illness. You want to pile in all the good stuff.
Yeah, bring in the fruits, bring in the veggies, the herbs, the wild foods, and make sure they're organic. Make sure they're fresh, they're raw, they're unwashed. And like I said earlier, even a better reason to start a garden. And if you've been watching any of our YouTube videos, we're putting gardening videos out there to kind of encourage you guys to start your own garden. It's winter time. There's not much to be grown during the winter.
But there's good, like lettuce is great.
Well, depending on where they are.
Depends where you're at. That's true.
If you're in a hot area, you got plenty to grow, So, start your own garden. I'll put videos out as I can, kind of helping you guys through that process. You can always ask us questions, You know
what everyone can grow?
What's that?
Sprouts.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like the best thing
one
with microorganisms. And if you're growing them like on your kitchen counter is even better, because if you're like, you're in the kitchen part of your day, they're, getting to know you while you're in there making your food, cooking and everything. So sprouts are really beneficial, or microgreens.
And that's what we're doing right now. We've got a garage full of microgreens. Today,
we started selling them this weekend.
We set up a table out in the front of our house.
In our driveway.
And I brought out microgreen trays of peas and sunflowers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I brought back from the farm a bunch of transplants, a bunch of starts. And that's what we did all day today. And we did awesome. I'm so surprised.
It was really good.
How many people bought stuff from us. So
the neighborhood really enjoyed that a lot, and they want more, which is great.
And we got to explain the benefits just like we are to you today. We got to tell people how wonderful microgreens are and how wonderful these elevated biotics are and these living microorganisms that just help us get through our healing,
Yeah, and then we plan to sell a ton of microgreens at the farmers markets coming up here. So we'll get to spread the word even further than our neighborhood, which is really cool.
So this was just part of Anthony's podcast, but we wanted to kind of split up, I guess, what we focused on like specific topics and specific questions that are frequently asked. And this was this is a big one because everybody is always wondering about their B12. And so I think tomorrow we're going to jump on and we're going to talk about, why people are B12 deficient in the first place. Why is it important to get B12 in your system? Now you guys know one of probably the best way to get B12 in your system. But why do people become deficient in B12? What are the causes of these deficiencies? So tomorrow I think we're going to hop on and we'll do another live and we'll talk through the B12 deficiencies. And if anybody has questions, I don't even think we really got many questions today.
I don't think there was any questions I saw that popped up. But something we didn't mention is there's also a really good B12 supplement that you can take too. that we take from Vimergy. And when you take a B12 supplement, you want to make sure it's really good, high quality. So that's also another way of getting your B12 too. But leafy greens and sprouts is like really where it's at with in fruit and stuff. But leafy greens, you're gonna get it from there.
That's the best way.
That's the best way. But with supplement, I just wanted to throw that in there because I have a feeling someone will ask about it.
And we'll talk more about the supplements probably in the next couple of days. We'll go into more detail on like the B12 supplement by Vimergy and why it's different from a lot of the synthetic B12s that you see out there that have added preservatives in it to keep the B12 lifespan going, and why that is something that we don't want to put in our bodies.
Yeah. So, okay.
Cool.
I think that's it. You guys, we mentioned this at the beginning, but if you jumped in at the end, I just wanted to remind you, we are starting the 369 liver cleanse this Saturday, December 5th. So if you guys want to join us, join in. We will be talking about it on our stories as we do it to help keep you motivated. And we love if others are also joining in and just helping to cleanse their liver. And then our elderberry kits are still on sale for our launch / Black Friday, 10% off through end of day tomorrow, November 30th. So be sure to take advantage of that. Promo code is Happy Healthy. And that's 10% off your entire order on our website. So go check it out at thatrootlife.com.
Cool.
So,
all right. Well, I hope you guys learned something. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you're going to start bringing in more of those elevated biotics, those living microorganisms, so you can kick that B12 into gear, you know?
All right. We'll see you guys later.
All right. Bye.
Let us know if you have questions. Bye.